Shabbat Shalom and welcome to our Shabbat morning service. We are coming to you from our sanctuary. I'm Rabbi Javier Carapan and I'm joined by Leslie Zucker and our technical team. If you're joining us on Facebook Live, you will find links to the prayer pages and other information in the comments section. If you're watching us on our virtual sanctuary, the links to the PDFs are above the player, and all other links were emailed to you with the e-news. We thank you, especially our digital docents, for managing our streaming. If you haven't done so already and you're watching us on Facebook Live and want to say hello, we invite you to type Shabbat Shalom and then click enter, and also tell us where you're watching it from. If you have feedback about the service this morning, we invite you to take some notes and email us during the week, and thank you for that. And again, if you have any issues during the streaming, we invite you to text 913-303-1134 is our technical assistance line, Tal, and a docent will call you back as soon as they can. Shabbat Shalom and welcome. Again, we continue our time together on page 288 as we offer thanks to God for having brought us back to this new day. Mode Ani, page 288. Mode Ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam. We continue together on page 291 at the top of the page. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Yatzar Et Ha'adam B'chokhmah Uvarah Bo Nekavim Nekavim Chalulim Chalulim Galui Veyadua Lifnei Chiseh Chevodecha She'im Yipateach Achat Mehem O Yisatem Achat Mehem Yeh Efshar Leitkayem Ve'la'amod Lefanecha ברוך אתה, אדוני, רופא כל בשר ומפליא לעשות. אלוהי נשמה שנתת בי טהורה page 293, together we will chant the blessings for daily miracles, Nisim Bechol Yom 293.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lesech vivina lehavchin ben yom uven laila.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, pokeach ivrim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asurim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, zokef kefufim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, rokah haaretz al hamayim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, amechim mitzadei gaver.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, malbish arumim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, anoten layahef koach.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, amavir sheina meinai utnuma me'afapai.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani b'tzelem Elohim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani bat chorim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani Yisrael.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, uzer Yisrael bigvura.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, oter Yisrael v'tifara.
Amen.
In the middle of page 302, we join together in the words of Tzaddik Katamar, words from Psalm 92, a song for Shabbat.
Tzaddik katamar yifrach, ke'erez galvanon yizgeh, shetulin bebeit Adonai, b'chatzrot Eloheinu yafichu od yanuvun b'seva, b'sheinim merana yiyu lehagid ki yashar Adonai zuri velo avlatabo.
Page 306, we conclude our section of the service called Pezukei de Zimra, Songs of Praise, with Psalm 150, Hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. On page 317, we prepare for the recitation of the Shema, which will follow on page 318. We begin with the blessing. O God, inspiration and guide for all, you have spoken in 1,000 tongues for us to hear. In every land and every age, your children have heard you and imagined you in separate ways. And yet, O God, you are one, unifier of humanity. We give thanks for the sages and teachers who bring us understanding of your will. Gratefully, we recall the lawgivers and prophets, the psalmists and sages of Israel. And joyfully we remember that from the dawn of Israel's life, we would turn to you and find purpose. May the teachings of our ancestors live on in our minds, and their passion for righteousness stir our hearts. Help us to live so that our daily conduct reveals the beauty and wisdom of your truth.
Baruch atah Adonai, habocher be'amo Yisrael be'ahava. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בהם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להוד על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Amen. Page 322, together we join in Mi Chamocha. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נזר בקודש, נורא תהילות, אוסף הלב, אוסף הלב.
שירה חדשה שיפוגלי, לשמך שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ויאמרו,
אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נזר בקודש, נורא תהילות, אוסף הלב, אוסף הלב, אוסף הלב. We now prepare for our Amidah, our silent prayer, standing prayer. We begin together on page 322, and we continue then through page 337. I invite you to follow the words in our Siddur, in our prayer book, and also take this time for a meditation, for a private prayer, or just for time with your loved ones.
צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ופדה חינומך, יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל. Adonai sepetai tiftachu fi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. ולנצח נצחים, קדושה לך נקדיש, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד לך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש. בשבחך אלוהינו, טיפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כי אל מלך גדול, כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש.
We continue with our service for the reading of the Torah. It begins on page 367 with Romemu. On this Shabbat morning, you can find a link to the Torah reading in the comments and was also included in the e-news. And it will take you to the book of Genesis, Bereshit, Genesis 26, beginning with verse 23, and it will go through verse 31. As I often mention, we are reading from the Torah in a triennial cycle, and we're now in the second year of the triennial. No particular reason other than it forces me and all of us to look at different sections of the Torah portion. As I mentioned last night, if you were joining us, or you can actually go back and watch it, the excellent, the most well-known, I guess, story of this week's Torah portion is when Jacob steals the firstborn rights from Esau. But that is in chapter 27. We're now in chapter 26. So here, Jacob doesn't play a big role. This is all about Isaac and Rebekah. Now, a little bit of context, I think it's important because of the section we are reading has a history behind it. First, some of you may recall, and you haven't read that section recently, let me tell you what's going on. Abraham at one point had encountered this individual called Avimelech, which was the Canaanite king of the city-state of Gerar, and in the vicinity of Be'er Sheva today, Abraham and his servants had dug some wells, and then comes Avimelech and his bunch, and they closed the wells. They filled them up with dirt again. So wells are very important for a pastoralist society, as the historians call them. So that was a great affront. Also, you may recall that Abraham, when he encounters Avimelech, tells him that Sarah, his wife, is his sister. And Avimelech takes her into his harem, basically. And then Avimelech has a vision at night. I said Avimelech chas. I get the ch and then it goes to the cha. So Avimelech had a vision in which God tells him, what you think you're doing, that's Sarah, that's Abraham's wife. So Avimelech says, "Oh, I did not know this was happening." So um, all these episodes, and this is a lot to talk about, but we're not going to go in that direction. Uh, happened to Isaac again. Isaac encounters Avimelech, and he digs some wells, and they fill it in, and he tells Avimelech that Rebecca is his sister, and then he finds out that she's not. We've all seen. Now this is Abraham, Isaac, and they're two different generations. But Avimelech seems to be always the same guy. A little suspicious, but again, this is literary theory behind. We're not going to go that road, but it's the same guy. So if he had an experience with the father and the mother, and then has the son, and he has the same thing, comes with his sister again, what's going on here? But every time that Abraham, and Yitzchak find themselves in a relationship of some kind with Avimelech, it doesn't end well, and Avimelech chased them away from the lands that he controlled. So fast forward to this week's Torah portion. Again, we find Isaac who was introduced at the beginning of the Torah portion as the son of Abraham. And he, again, is reliving all the events of his father's life. He traveled south, as I said, and then passing his wife for his sister, as of his sister, and then fear for his own life. And some commentators suggest that perhaps this is how, we all turn into our parents at some point or another. I don't know if that's truth, but it might be for some of us at least. And that might be what the actual Torah is actually teaching, right? That we all live through the same experiences, and then give us a better understanding of why our parents did what they did at that point in their lives. But in the episode that we are reading specifically, comes Avimelech again. Now, Isaac has settled again in that area around Beersheba. Excuse me. And he is doing really well. And Avimelech comes and basically lies to him again and again. He says things like, now we see that you're very powerful, and before we had sent you away, Beshalom, which is not true. They kicked them out. They didn't kill them. I guess it's a good thing that they didn't kill them, but he did the same to Abraham and Isaac. And so now he wants to have an Allah, a pact, and Isaac says, okay. But the section that I think is more telling, the verse that is more telling in this very short episode in which Isaac and Avimelech come to an agreement. It's the pact, the brit, Allah, whatever you want to call it in Hebrew. There's the same word. It's at the very beginning. And it's a very strange episode, and sometimes I think it's overlooked because it's so short. And it's at the beginning of the Torah portion. It says, Vaya'al Misham Be'er-Sheva. So he went up to Beersheba again, Isaac. And in that night, God appeared to him. So we don't get a lot of these visions, kinds of things in the life of Isaac in particular. So God appears to Isaac, and he says to him, I am Anochi Elohei Avraham Avicha. I am the God of your father Abraham. Al tira, do not fear, or fear not, for I am with you. And I will bless you and increase your offspring for the sake of my servant Abraham. Ba'avur Avraham Avdi. This phrase is very unique on several levels. First of all, this is the very first appearance of this idea that we will be familiar with later on, which is the merit of the fathers. In Hebrew, that's usually called zechut avot, meaning that the righteousness of the ancestors creates sort of a fund of spiritual credit that may sustain their descendants. And we find this all over the Torah and in rabbinic Judaism later. All zechut avot, the merit of our ancestors, will help us when in times of need. But this is actually the very first mention of it. And the other little word that you may not think it's very meaningful or significant is the word avdi, my servant. You say, well, Abraham is always called his servant. Well, actually, yes, there are only, in the Torah, there are only five, there's a lot of people in the Torah, right?
Yeah.
There are only 5 people that are called, when God speaks in these visions, Avdi. And they're, of course, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Who's the other candidate, everybody at home? You can type what you think it is. You should have Moses. But the number 5, you'll never guess. I can guarantee you, because I didn't know. The number 5 is a very famous guy in my book, at least. His name is Caleb ben Yefuneh. And do you remember why he's famous? I'm asking you at home. No Googling it. Not allowed. So Caleb is famous because down the road, you may recall the story of the Meraglim, of those who went and scout the land of Israel.
Yes,
2
that
people
I've heard
came
of.
back. Those people came back, and everybody said it was bad, and 2 people said it was okay. We were going to be able to conquer it. And they are Joshua ben Nun and Caleb ben Yefuneh, Caleb son of Jephunneh or something like that in English. Who knows? But that is. Now, Joshua is missing, right? He's not called Avdi. And then there are the 2 people who are called Avdi in the rest of the Hebrew Bible, and those are King David and Job, the guy from that troublesome book. But again, this is the first time you get the word Avdi in reference to anybody, and it's in reference to Abraham, and then later on it will be Isaac and Jacob. But the question is, what precipitated, and the Torah never tells us these things, what precipitated this vision from God and this reassurance to Isaac that everything is going to be all right? Now, this, you have to remember again, comes right before the story of the stealing of the firstborn right? Things are going to get bad in the family. Jacob's going to have to flee from the family, and it's going to be a whole tragedy coming up. Things were not really looking up good for Isaac. And the Etz Chaim commentary says, from God's message, it would seem that Isaac was discouraged, perhaps because of the repeated conflicts with neighbors, Avimelech, or perhaps with the resigned recognition of a middle-aged man that he would never match the achievements of his father, Abraham. But God assures him that his life is still rich with meaning and purpose. And I don't know how you are dealing with all this pandemic thing and the election and all that, but I tell you that many of us, I think, are feeling this pandemic fatigue.
Yes.
And Poor Isaac was feeling a different kind of fatigue, just life fatigue, but we all go through that. So uh, when I read this section, I zeroed in on Al tira ki itcha anochi, do not fear, I am with you. And it is our hope and our prayer that this is true for us as well, that God assures us that life still has rich meaning and purpose. It's coming around. It's going to be a few more months, but we'll get through this together. And certainly, this is not the end of Isaac's life. Things will continue and will get a little worse for him, but then at the end, things will work out for Isaac. And Jacob will be, and Esau too, will have their own families and their own lives besides this. So there is much more to come. And the assurance of this Torah portion is that God is with us, whatever may come. We will continue now with the actual reading from the Torah, and you will hear all these words again there. And I want you to pay attention to some of the things that, in the English is. I have to remember, I always forget to read the English. And I don't mean not to read it, I just forget it. But I'll remember today. Because I think you'll hear all the tension and all the conflict between Isaac and Avimelech. But that there's a resolution. And perhaps this is the immediate meaning of the word al tira, that God is saying to Isaac right before he's going to meet with Avimelech, don't worry, everything will work out. Right. And it does work out. So right. There's kind of immediate results. But first, we joined in the alternative blessings there on page 369. Holy One of blessing, your presence fills creation. You have enlightened this path with the wisdom of Torah, giving it to the Jewish people as their particular way. Blessed are you, merciful one, who gives this Torah to the Jewish people. ויעל משם באר שבע, וירא אליו אדוניו בלילה, ההוא ויאמר, אנוכי אלוהי אברהם אביך, אל תירא כי איתך אנוכי, וברכתיך והרוויתי את זרעך בעבור אברהם עבדי. ויבן שם מזמח, ויקרא בשם אדוני, ויית שם אוהלו, ויכרו שם עבדי יצחק באר. ועמימלך הלך אליו מגרר, ואחוזת מרעהו, ופיכול שר צבאו, ויאמר עליהם יצחק, מדוע באתם אליי, ואתם שנאתם אותי, ותשלחוני מאיתכם? ויאמר, ראינו, כי היה אדוני עמך, ונאמר, תהיינה עלה בינינו וביניך, ונכרתה ברית עמך, אם תעשה עמנו רעה, כאשר לא נגנוך, וכאשר עשינו עמך, רק טוב, ונשלחך בשלום. אתה ברוך אדוני. ויעש להם משתה, ויאכלו וישתו, וישכימו בבוקר, וישבעו איש לאחיו, וישלחם יצחק, וילכו מאיתו בשלום. From there, Isaac went up to Beersheba, and that night Adonai appeared to him and said, Anochi Adonai Elohei Avraham, I am God, the God of your father Abraham. Fear not, for I am with you, and I will bless you and increase your offspring for the sake of my servant Abraham. So Isaac built an altar there and invoked the name of Adonai. Isaac pitched his tent there, and his servants started digging a well. And Avimelech came to him from Gerar with Ahuzah, his counselor, and Fichol, chief of his troops. So he came with a gang, basically. Isaac said to them, "Why have you come to me, seeing that you have been hostile?" The Hebrew says exactly, "You hated me and have driven me away from you." And they said, "We now see plainly that Adonai has been with you, and we thought, let there be a sworn treaty between our two parties, between you and us. Let us make a pact with you that you will not do us harm, just as we have not molested you, but have always dealt kindly with you and sent you away in peace." Lie. From now on, be you, and this is, I think, why Avimelech now is kind of fearful of Isaac. He realizes he's Baruch Adonai, blessed of Adonai. And we don't know what Isaac says, but the next verse simply says, "Then Isaac made for them a feast, and they ate and drank." So he agreed. And early in the morning, they exchanged oaths. Isaac then bade them farewell, and they departed from him in peace. And this time, it's actually the truth. When they say Beshalom, now, yes, they are in agreement. Blessings after the reading of the Torah. Holy One of blessing, your presence fills creation. This Torah is a teaching of truth, whole and balanced, and from it comes eternal life for the people who embrace it. Blessed are you, merciful One, who gives this Torah to the Jewish people. As we gather together on this Shabbat, we take a moment to offer a blessing, a prayer, a Misheberach for healing. You can access the Misheberach list through the e-news that you received yesterday. You can also follow the link found in the comments, or you can simply offer names by typing them in the comments and clicking enter so we can all see them. I invite you to start typing now as we together join in the words of the Misheberach on page 371. We offer a prayer for those in need of healing. We also think of those who help in healing, especially all the first responders and health workers all over our country and the world during this pandemic. May those who care for the sick with their hands, their voices, their hearts be blessed with courage and stamina. May those who pursue healing through medical skills and knowledge be blessed with insight, patience, and compassion. And may all of us, the sick and the well together, find courage and hope. And together we say, Amen. Service for the reading of the Torah concludes with Etz Chaim on page 374. As we now prepare for our moment of remembrance, I invite you to turn to page 593. The light of life is a finite flame. Like the Shabbat candles, life is kindled, it burns, it glows. It is radiant with warmth and beauty, but soon it fades, its substance is consumed, and it is no more. In light we see, in light we are seen. The flames dance and our lives are full. But as night follows day, the candle of our life burns down and gutters. There is an end to the flames. We see no more, we are not more seen. Yet we do not despair, for we are more than a memory, slowly fading into the darkness. With our lives we give life. Something of us can never die. We move in the eternal cycle of darkness and death, of light and life. On this Shabbat, we are observing the Shiva period for Leon Mendelssohn, uncle of Sharon Altman and Barbara Mendelssohn, and the Shloshim for Larry Weiner, husband of Joni Weiner, father and father-in-law of Samantha and Quentin Hammondtree, father of Todd Weiner, and grandfather of Mackenzie and Braxton Hammondtree, and Sasha and Nathan Weiner. If you are joining us on this Shabbat and are remembering a loved one, we invite you to type their names in the comments. On this Shabbat, we remember the following yortzites of members of our congregation: Aaron O. Bean, Kenneth Edward Carey, Sasha Cohn, David DiFilippo, Dr. Joel David Eisenberg, Bernard Fassbinder, Linda Jane Gensler, Isabel Bass Goldstein, Leah Gould, Esther Hamovitz, Shirley Hayungs, Gabriel Michael Hellman, Max Klinok, Seda Garfinkel Kram, Gladys B. Lowenstein, Alfred Parnez, Arnold Perez, Hadassah Soltz, Eric Sainz, J. L. Shapiro, Nathan Shimkin, Ida Siegel, Edward A. Smith, Henry Sobol, Sadie Steinzik, Selma Wade, Mandel H. Wheeler. Zichronam Livracha, may the memories be for a blessing. On page 598, together we join for Kaddish Yatom, the mourners' Kaddish. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון ובמכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהא שמי רבה מברך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לאלה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דם מרם ולמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במקומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. We would like to thank everyone who's joined us from our area and from around the country. Special thanks to Leslie Zucker and Dave Zucker and all our docents, digital docents, for all their work and dedication. Our next Erev Shabbat service will be Friday, November 27th at 6:30 p.m. It's going to be our special Thanksgiving edition.
Yeah.
And I want to make everybody aware that 4,000 blood donations are needed each week in the Kansas City area to treat people at hospitals. And in prayer, before to the pandemic, 70% of that was filled with donations from community drives like the one that we had here regularly. But you can still participate in the Beth Torah virtual blood drive through the Community Blood Center. And please refer to the e-news for additional information. It's coming up. And I always say it's virtual in that you say virtually that you're with Beth Torah, but the actual blood is not virtual.
It's an actual blood donation virtual drive.
Virtual community drive.
Yes.
That's to put it this way.
A midweek song session is happening on Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. We'll do some songs of gratitude. This and so much more is in the e-news. If you are not receiving the e-news, let us know. We'll get you on the list.
Thank you, Leslie. We together conclude our time together this Shabbat with Adon Olam on page 625.
Adon Olam,
Hashem Allah,
Asher Malach, בטרם כל, יציר נברא, עת נשא בחצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם, ואחרי ככלות הכל, לבדו ימלוך רע אדון עולם, והוא היה והוא עובד, והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם, אדון עולם, אשר מלך, בטרם כל, יציר נברא, עת נשא בחצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם, בידו אפילו רוחי, ועת ישן וירא אדון עולם, ואם רוחי הביא אותי, אדוני לי ולא ירא אדון עולם, אדון עולם, אשר מלך, בטרם יציר נברא, עת נשא בחצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם.
Shabbat shalom,
Shabbat shalom,
everybody.
everyone.
Have a wonderful day.
Take care of each other out there.